Welcome to Marriage Unmasked. Today we are talking about how strong wives need strong husbands. How can the man lead without competing with his wife in the relationship? This is absolutely a need, but it can often turn into a competition, and that's not healthy, of course. So we are going to break down why this happens, where this comes from, and how God really designed us to complement each other instead of compete with each other. And so this has been a struggle for us for many years in our marriage. I came into our marriage, as we've said on other episodes, without a really strong sense of who I was, what I wanted, where I was going. And I would say Cara came in with a much stronger sense of who she was and what she wanted and where she was going. And that played into our dynamic heavily. We would have differences of opinions or differences in what to do or what direction to take. And I often would not stand strong in my own voice. I would just say, okay, whatever you want. And I really needed to drill down and understand who I was and what I wanted first. And this really came out strongly one time when we were planning where to go for Easter.
Like which family to spend the holidays with.
Yeah. And I was hoping to have us go to my parents for Easter. And I was expressing that and trying to lead in that direction. And Cara she wasn't adamantly against that, but she kind of raised some objections or felt like it was more comfortable to stay where we were. Her family was closer than my family was. And so rather than take a strong leadership stance and say, hey, we haven't been to my family in a while, let's do this, I just kind of let it go again. And I didn't really take a strong stand, and I suppressed my own voice and what I really wanted, rather than lead us through that discussion, and that we both collaborate and come together on what we're going to do.
And I think a lot of times it's looked like you deferring to me, like you make the decision, right? Like it's not even like we're both sharing our opinion. It's just you make the decision. I don't have an opinion. I don't have a vision for this.
Yeah. So I had this story that I was telling myself that she wanted to take charge. She wanted to lead. She didn't want to follow my direction. And that was an unhealthy story because she absolutely did want to follow me if I would have had a sense of direction, a strong, this is what I feel, this is what I want to do.
I think that so many wives are feeling, kind of stuck in carrying this extra role of leading because he just simply did not have a vision. He simply didn't take that responsibility and that ownership of leading the family. And then later, what I often see and what we've even seen in our own marriage is then the wife is exhausted. She's upset. She's resentful. He's also resentful.
Because he suppressed his own voice,
right?
Really.
He
suppressed his own voice and his desires and his viewpoint on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. But often I think the husband has a story about like blaming his wife. If she wasn't so strong, if she wasn't so this, then I would have done this, but that strong sense of leadership and direction wasn't there. And when that's not there in a family, a woman sees that is it's empty slot that needs to be filled. Mm-hmm. And she can lead, she can do all kinds of things. She can make decisions. She can, women are strong. But what we've seen is that when we do step into that as women and we're over functioning in that masculine leadership role, it really takes a toll on us as a wife. We lose our femininity, and it really affects the attraction. It affects the connection in the marriage. And then, of course, it affects the man as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times the man is kind of in a victim mindset about it. And that is a big source of the problem. I was really playing a victim card. A lot of times this would happen because she would express her opinion very strongly. She would come across as very, adamant about a certain way. And I would try to keep the peace rather than really stand up for myself or my voice, or actually initiate and have my own voice, be heard from the beginning, and have a plan. I would feel like I was being overrun, like it had to go her way. And that's an unhealthy story that some men believe, is that their strong wife is just taking over everything. And that isn't actually true. You're actually giving up your own power as a man at that point. I didn't always realize that. I didn't actually think that through and really reflect on that. But I was giving up my power in the relationship and telling myself a story that that's how she wanted it. That's just how she's just like that. And then blame her for going her own way and not caring about me and not caring about my perspective. But what a sad what a sad mindset to have.
Mm-hmm.
A very unhelpful mindset. And if you're trying to lead your family from a strong place, that's the wrong mindset. It's not going to help you.
Well, and this dynamic has affected us too, where we've been in such a low place at times where we've both voiced, you should have been with a different woman, or like, you should just be with a different man.
You'd be better off with somebody else.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that.
Yes.
But, like, God is calling us higher.
Yeah.
And that's really what we've seen too, is like, no, this can be a really powerful dynamic. And this is an opportunity to grow. And we've seen that, right? Adam has grown in his masculinity. He's grown in that leadership. And I have grown as well. And so God is calling us higher, right? It's not necessarily where this was a bad choice. Okay, we might as well just end this, which we've been there. We've thought that. But
been at that point.
because it can be really painful. But that's why strong women need strong husbands, because a strong wife, it's not that she's controlling or dominant, but she has leadership. She has vision, right? She has goals. She has dreams. She has a strong character. And that is a beautiful thing. I think there's two sides, right? There's the one camp, like feminist camp, like strong women. Yes, yes, yes. Right. And then there's like the opposite. You can take it so opposite where it's like, yeah, strong wives, they should just, simmer down. But really, I think strong wives are a gift. When you have a woman come in who has these beautiful, visions and dreams and can articulate herself well and works hard and all those things, that's a beautiful thing.
Right. And I think the difference is really the masculinity and femininity. If you're really strong in your femininity and very strong, as Cara mentioned, like all the other things, the dreams and the goals and stuff, but you're also really strong in your femininity, that is a beautiful thing. But if you're taking over that masculine energy and you're stepping into that, then that isn't as helpful. And sometimes that happens, like we said, because the man is stepping back. But I think you can be very strong in your feminine energy, or you can be strong in an unhealthy way into masculine energy that isn't healthy for you or for the marriage.
The Proverbs 31 woman, she's a strong woman, right? She's a beautiful example of a strong woman, and her husband is honored, right? He sees her as the gift that she is. She's not a problem in his eyes because he's a strong man. He's not insecure. He's not, lacking in masculinity and lacking in leadership. He's a strong man, and so he can appreciate his wife's strength. And I think that's what it comes down to,
his wife's strength actually enhances his strength.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really how God wants it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the danger when husbands are sitting in that insecurity or they're shrinking back, the way wives do, they end up over functioning, carrying this weight that they weren't meant to carry. And like I said before, that's so painful. It's so exhausting. And this is really a dynamic that we see underneath some of the things that we hear couples complaining about, right? Their sex life is dying. They're not attracted. Their communication is so crazy. This is actually at the root of a lot of that, but it's hard to understand, right? We went years without understanding this, but this was what was at the root of so many other things showing up in our marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. What happens then is like competition starts to creep into the relationship. And what that might look like is when he feels she is challenging his authority, or taking over. Or maybe she feels like he's passive, so she just has to step up and step into that role and do all the things. But really both end up fighting for control instead of actually, as God intends it, fighting for connection.
If it does start to feel like this competition, the root issue here is not usually power. I mean, like, I never wanted to like have some massive power in our marriage.
I think you resented having all this power.
Yeah. I mean, for example, like even in parenting, being the like leading parent, I really didn't want that power. I really didn't. I'm the enforcer. I'm the one who brings up all the things. I'm the one who, does all the like deeper parenting work. I don't want that. But what the root really is fear, right? And wives fear being abandoned. They fear being unloved, left unsupported. That is really the fear there. And for husbands, they're fearing not being respected or being inadequate. Mm-hmm. So God's beautiful design that He has for us of this, oneness, this one flesh. The enemy is he wants to destroy that. So he always is coming in, trying to twist it into this battle where it's fear driven, and it leads to disconnection, and it's painful.
So what does it look like when you step into leadership without competing in the relationship? And what it really looks like for the husband is taking initiative. You have to have a sense for the atmosphere of the home and what's going on. Maybe there's a problem with the kids, maybe they're making a big mess or whatever it is, or maybe mess has become a problem. If he takes initiative, he sees the problem and he comes up with a solution and says, okay, we're gonna put up a chore chart now, and we're gonna have the kids on this to clean the house every day. So the man takes initiative when he sees a problem like that and starts to solve that problem, rather than the wife having to see the problem and take initiative as well and try to solve it. So initiative is a big deal. Steadiness is a big deal for a husband who's stepping into leadership. That can mean a lot of things, but steadiness, one of the biggest things is when his wife is having a lot of emotional up and down, or maybe she is stressed out or sad or whatever, he is a safe place for her to come to. He is a rock. He is a steady place where he validates her emotions and she can relax into his strength, and she can share those emotions and feel heard and seen. And he isn't rocked by those emotions. Her emotional up and down does not cause him to have an emotional up and down all the time. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, there's no stability in the relationship. Mm-hmm. So he's steady, and he's also serving. That is an important part of leadership. That is what Christ modeled for us, servant leadership. He washed his disciples' feet. A husband also takes care of his wife. He serves her in whatever way she needs. If she needs, I don't know, maybe her feet are really hurting after a long day standing on her feet, and he serves her by giving her a foot rub at night.
Adam rubs my feet and legs every single night, practically. He's a great example of that.
So yeah, and there's a lot of other ways where a husband can take care of his wife and serve her in that way, and that isn't weak, that isn't small. That is a thing that a strong man does to lead his family, by showing that kind of love and that care and concern for his wife. Leadership doesn't mean that you have to get louder or more forceful or dominant in the relationship. It really means that you as a man, you stay consistent, you are grounded, especially in God's love and God's wisdom, and you're letting that lead you so that you can lead your family in really powerful and effective ways.
Mm-hmm. And for wives, just because you are a strong woman, it doesn't have to turn into control. And that actually was the case for me. It's not that that's the reason you're a strong woman, but I think it's just part of who you are. And part of who I was I had these unhealed wounds. And so that's really where the control was coming from. And I think sometimes people combine this into one, like a strong woman is controlling. And I don't believe that is the case. These are separate things. Yeah, they can be happening at the same time, but a woman with strength, that's a gift that doesn't equal that she's controlling. Yeah. And so what that can look like is respecting his leadership, creating the space for him to step up, right? You're not shrinking yourself. You're not saying, okay, I can't have an opinion. Okay, I can't share my dreams. Okay, I can't, share this idea or whatever, right? That's not what that means. It's just creating space, and I'll talk in a second more about this, for him to step up into that leadership. So let's say, you guys are discussing something, and you're making a decision, and he says, well, maybe we should do this, and instead of jumping in no, that's not going to work, that's dumb, instead of correcting mid decision, come alongside, right, and support, trust. Adam was talking before about femininity, and femininity is, yes, behind a strong woman, and the femininity looks like trusting in God, right? It doesn't depend on her husband. She's not feminine because of her husband. She's feminine because she can trust God, his stability, his strength, his leadership, right? His providing for her. And so you're trusting God in these kind of conversations where you're allowing him to step up, right? You're trusting And you're kind of trusting him too. I know that can be hard if there's broken trust, but then you go back to God, right? And you can trust God in that. But you are, just supporting him. Yeah, definitely offering wisdom, but also trusting. And it's that surrender. And that's where you might notice if you are having a struggle with control, right? If you're like, no, I can't trust he's going to do that because he's probably going to screw it up. But then there might be some wounds that need to be healed. But this is a conversation. It's not okay, I'll just be quiet and then I'll just let him say whatever he wants and make whatever decision he wants. No,
Right.
think of it as more of a conversation. It's a supportive conversation. You're still opening up, you're still sharing, but you're supporting his leadership as well.
And that's so helpful for the man, to have that. He doesn't want a wife who just completely shuts off her voice either, because then she's not bringing her authentic voice in, and he doesn't have all the information he needs really to make a wise decision or to, have a great vision in that area. And for a man who struggles with this, the root thing that he really needs to heal is his identity, because that's where he becomes strong. That is where he becomes stable. That is where he becomes a rock for his family and someone with a vision. You're only going to lead the best when you know who you are, when you're very secure in who you are in God, that you know that you have his love, that you know that you are his honored son, that he treasures you, that you are redeemed and forgiven, and that he has a perfect future for you. And all of those things, when you are actually really rock solid in that identity, then you are in a strong place to lead your family. The stronger that identity is in Christ.
Yeah, and I mean, the identity for wives is also key. And I kind of touched on that before with just that is how you relax into your femininity. You can be a strong woman and a feminine woman when you really know, like I said before, like God is trustworthy, he is safe, he is protecting me, he is providing. When you know all these things so deeply in you, it just affects your being, who you are, how you show up to the world. And so when we both have these strong identities, then we're complementing each other.
Yeah.
And the femininity, the masculinity, it just is a natural thing. It just becomes a natural, beautiful thing. And that's exactly what God designed. That's exactly what he wants for you, is to enjoy this beautiful complementing each other, attractiveness, all the things.
Absolutely. And so if this is something that you're struggling with, we want to give you some practical steps too. And the first is to really reflect, especially for the man, reflect. Where am I leading from a place of fear? And really ask God that question. Ask for the Holy Spirit's insight on that. Where is fear my motivation? How is that showing up for me instead of leading in love? So is the source fear or is it love? And then for wives, something to reflect on is, where am I grasping for control instead of relaxing into trust? So those are some really important questions to ask. And then for the guys, here's your challenge for this week. Take initiative in one area with confidence and strength. Even ask your wife, what is one area where you most desire me to step up in? What is one thing that I can really start to prove leadership in? And go after that. And make some steps forward in leading in that area. And maybe next week it's another area. And you just keep working on those things, because this isn't something that changes overnight. This is something that takes time.
Mm-hmm. And my challenge for you wives is to pause before you step in. Maybe he's like stepping into some parenting, right? And you're like, oh, I don't want him to say that. Or no, I don't like the way this is going, right? Pause before you step in and just ask, like, is this a moment I can trust him and give space for his leadership, right? Just get curious, like, can I do that? And if your answer is no, maybe reflect on that too. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it is literally an unsafe thing and you need to have a private conversation with him. But probably the answer is yes, if you are really trusting God, right? If you're really surrendering this and surrendering him and trusting that God is working in his heart, right? In his mind and giving him wisdom, then you can trust that leadership a little bit more. And this isn't about perfection for either husband or wife. Like, this isn't about, you need to do this perfectly. You need to be the perfect wife. You need to be the perfect husband.
No.
It's about being who you already are, underneath the wounds. Like, I know this is who you are. For the men out there, like, I know you are a strong man who is made to be a leader and makes wise decisions and all these things. And I know that's who God created you to be. And for wives, I know you're strong and supportive and gentle and trusting and soft, all these beautiful things, because that's who God made you to be. And it's when we are hurting, when we are wounded and we don't know how to heal those wounds, is when we start to almost like it comes from a place of trying to protect ourselves, where we're maybe seeing some control, or we're seeing some, for the men, like stepping back and hiding and insecurity, right? And passivity. So think of it as this beautiful stepping into who you already are, who God made you to be.
Absolutely. And we have communities that are really helpful in developing these skills and this awareness and the healing that's needed. My community is called Refined for Guys, who can come in, and we do a lot of work around inner healing, drilling into our identity and how we can step up into being strong leaders in our family, and even some practical ways to do that. And Cara has her community called Restored for Wives, another community full of healing and a safe place for wives to, grow and heal together and relax back into their femininity and learn more about how to do that in their marriage.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how God is working in there, and hear the stories of wives who are seeing transformation in their marriage and in themselves, really, because no matter how your spouse is showing up, whether you're in Refined for Men or if you're in Restored for Wives, we're also helping just you as a woman, you as a man, get the healing that God has for you, and relax and enjoy this beautiful relationship with him, and know how loved you are. So it's so much more even than marriage, honestly. And that's just really an honor to be part of that journey as well. So
and also I do have one more resource too that's going to be in the show notes, a self-assessment for guys on your leadership. So it's a quiz you can take to assess how you're doing as a leader, and has some practical ways to apply that to your life too. So check that out in the show notes as well.
And if this was helpful for you, please rate and review the podcast, share it. Let's spread the word, and just trying to offer more love and more connection between God and you, and in your marriage. And we will see you next week.